Hello YouTube. So today what I'm going to do is a traditional artisan sourdough bread. This water, flour, starter, and salt, and I'm going to show you the process of that. I want to say before I start that if you're scared of sourdough, just start. That's literally the best thing. I will say that I'm a baker by nature, but even still, I never made a bread that I couldn't eat. And I didn't even know the traditional way to do it when I started, which was probably more like 5 years ago. And so maybe 4 anyway. So I would just say to start, and as you do more research and get the process going, get a feel for the dough, you'll get better as time goes on. So here is my traditional way. I also feel like I should put a disclaimer on this video because it's very cloudy outside and I just feel it gives me low energy vibes, and so that's how I feel. So I think that's what's coming across in this video. So this is just how you find me today. Real chill, low volume, low energy. That's what we're working with. So what you'll need is starter, a scale, bread flour or all-purpose flour, a large bowl, I'd say no smaller than 4 quarts, sea salt, something to cover your bowl like a beeswax wrap, and water. The first thing you want to do is take your scale, put your bowl on there, tare it to 0, and add 600 grams of water. Then you take your bubbly active starter and you add 250 grams. And then you'll stir that just until most of the starter has mixed in with the water. Then to that, add 900 grams of flour. I actually poured a little too much, which is no big deal. Just scoop some of it back out. And then you'll mix all of that together until it forms sort of a shaggy dough. Now for me, it's near impossible to get this all together with just a spatula, so I like to set the spatula aside and just get in there with my hands. I also think this is important to learn how to read your dough, and the best way to do that, I think, is to get hands-on with it. Now here you can see it has come together quite nicely. And then just cover that up. Like I said, I used a beeswax wrap, but you could just use a kitchen towel. Okay, so now you have everything except for the salt mixed in together, and I just put it loosely covered. You can just use a towel for this part too. And this is called the autolyse. So if you've ever read a recipe and you saw that word, that's what this means. And basically what it means is the flour just takes some time to absorb all of the water. So you just want to let it sit anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. It sits and it just absorbs everything, and then we'll come back and we'll add the salt and we'll continue. So my autolyse is over, and I don't actually know how long I let this sit, but I know it was at least 15 minutes, so I'm gonna move on to the next step, which is to add 16 grams of salt. And then you'll just mix that salt into the dough. I do like to wet my hand for this step because it helps the dough not stick to your hand as much, and so it just helps you work in the salt better. And you can re-wet your hand as many times as you need to help you incorporate this. Now that has sat about 20 or 30 minutes, so we're gonna move on to the stretch and folds. Now this part is where you stretch the dough 4 times. You lift one side, stretch it up, and pull it over. Turn the bowl a quarter of the way, and do the same thing. turn the bowl another quarter, same thing, and one final quarter turn. Cover and let rest 15 to 30 minutes. Now after 30 minutes of resting, we're going to repeat the same thing. Then we cover and rest for another 30 minutes. You're going to do this a total of 4 times. Now this is going to be our final stretch and fold, and you can see how much the dough has changed just in how much it kept its shape from the last stretch and fold to how much less it pulls up to pull over to the next side. So that's totally normal. That's what you want. That means the gluten is developing, and so we're on the right track. Now here what I'm doing is a window pane test because I did forget how many times I folded it, and so this will help you determine if it's ready or not if you do forget. So that is all stretched and folded. So now it's just gonna sit. I'm gonna have it sit until the morning. I could shape it and do the next step tonight, but it'll be like later tonight. So I just don't really have the energy for that. So I'm gonna let it sit until the morning and then we'll do the next step. Good morning. So it's the next morning now, and now we need to shape our bread. So last night, the bread was rising really well last night. And so it had doubled in size. I really should have gotten footage of that last night, but whatever, you'll see it this morning. So it had doubled in size last night, and so I actually put it in the fridge for the rest of the night. What I could have done is shaped it last night, but I was up so late because I was at a meeting, so it was like 11:30 when I realized it, and I needed to go to bed. So I just stuck it in the fridge. That slows the process down, and now I'm going to get it out of the fridge, and we'll do the shaping. So let's take a look here. Oh, see how it is definitely doubled in size from where it was yesterday. It was a little smaller than this last night when I put it in the fridge. So the fridge just slows it down. It doesn't stop the process, and that's why, because I didn't want over fermented dough. So that's why I put it in the fridge. So let's shape. Oh my gosh. I just filmed a whole segment on shaping your loaf for the first time because you shaped them twice. And I didn't record any of it. So I'm just going to explain some of it to you. And then I'll show you with the second shaping. So part of that missed segment was me saying that if you are new to sourdough, you do not have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. If all you have is a bowl and your ingredients, you can totally do this. That being said, I was baking sourdough for like 4 years and started seeing people online using stuff like this. Well, I finally had a gift card, and so I actually bought 2 of them because I had a gift card. And they have changed my life with sourdough, which probably sounds a little dramatic, but sometimes I can be a little dramatic. And I just love having them. This one helps me with like cutting the dough because 99% of the time I make 2 loaves at a time. And so I need to cut them to separate them. And then it helps me with shaping if I have a higher hydration dough. This one just helps me scrape the dough out of the bowl. If you're only going to get one, I would suggest this one because it can do everything. It can cut the dough, it can scrape it out of the bowl, and it can help you shape. But I really do like having 2. So that's my 2 cents on these. Again, not necessary, but super helpful. So these are our loaves after their first shape, which you didn't get to see. So they are resting for 20 minutes and then we will shape them again. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the second shaping. I'm going to show you how to do it with just your hands and how to do it with the dough scraper. Just double check to make sure I was filming. Okay, so you pick it up and you want to flip it back over and get it mostly back into a rectangle shape, but you can see it's not really going. That's just because it's getting stronger, which is really what you want. So you don't have to spread it out super far at all. Just gonna go like that. Roll it up. Now, if you're using a dough scraper, which this dough is dry enough that you don't have to, but if it was a wetter dough, you would want to. You're just going to scoop around and kind of tuck in, and that creates the tension. So let it catch on the countertop down here and pull in up there. And you'll tuck it, and then just keep repeating that process. Now, because I make them in loaf pans typically, I like to scoot them down like this a couple of times to kind of get them in a more oval shape and less round. Okay, and then if you're doing it with your hands, same technique applies. You want to push up and tuck under, letting the counter do the work down here. Okay, now there are multiple ways for you to let this rise the second time. I'm just going to show you one of them, because honestly, this is my favorite one at the moment. Now, I like to cut my parchment paper and size it down because I just find I don't like it as much when I don't do that, because it kind of bunches up in the corners and it makes little divots in my bread that I just don't really like. But you don't have to. You can just use it square and just plop it in like normal. So when you do it like this, you want to put it in so that this side is on top in the loaf pan, because the tensioned part of the bread is what you're going to score. Now on to the next. So now you just want to wrap it up in a plastic bag and put it back in your fridge. Okay, so now really that could rise anywhere from 2 hours to, how long is it gonna wait for me? It's gonna be in there about 7 hours for me. So it's a lot of rising time for this bread. A lot of people are gonna tell you it's overproofed. It bakes for me every time. So this is what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna bake it when I get home from work tonight, and we'll see what it looks like after that. Okay, I about forgot to film tonight. So we're gonna go ahead and get these loaves scored and into the oven, and I'm gonna show you how I do it. But first, I am going to suggest this really pretty bread lame. I got it on Amazon. I don't even, maybe you can see it. And this was another thing like the dough scraper that I did not use for years. I just used a sharp knife, and honestly, most of the time I just didn't score it. It will still rise. It just splits in weird places. And so when I bought this, which was just a couple months ago, just like the dough scraper, I was like, oh my gosh, where has this been for the past however many years that I've been baking? Because this is so worth it. I think it was only like $12 and it comes with 5 blades. So more than the dough scraper, because you can absolutely do that with your hands. If you wanted to invest in something, this would be the thing I would say to invest in. And it's more about the blade than the lame itself. But this lame did come with good blades and it's super cute. So I just like it. It's a little bit different. So I'm going to start with some shallow scoring. This will just be for decoration. This will not be where your bread will rise. So because of that, this deep score that I'm adding right here, that's where the bread is going to split, where I'm going to control the rise. So then on this one, I started with the more deep scores that are going to be where the bread is rising, and I gave it 2 for this one. You can do 1 or 2. It's just going to change the way that it looks more so than anything else. So just play with it and decide what you like to do. And now we're ready to bake. So I have preheated my oven at 500 degrees for 40 minutes with a tray of water at the bottom. I am now adding ice to that tray to create more steam, which is going to help with oven spring, which means your loaves are going to spring up and rise. Then you're going to immediately reduce oven temperature to 450 and cook for at least 25 minutes. I have baked with my oven enough to know at least 25 minutes. Like, that's the bare minimum I can make my bread and it cook all the way through. I can bake my bread. I think I said make it. That's the bare minimum amount that I need to bake my bread in order for it to cook all the way through. So I leave it on for that, and then I open it and I see what the top looks like. The longer the steam is in my oven, I have found, the less brown it will get. And I really like it to stay more golden. I don't like a super dark loaf. So I'm gonna check it in 25 minutes, see what I think, and if it needs to keep going, by all means, I will keep going. Okay, timer just went off. Oh, steamed up the camera. All right, let's take a look. So those are quite light, which I do like them light, but not that light. So you're gonna go back in. For 5 more minutes. Let's do 7. This is the final product after that 7 minutes, but you want to make sure and let them cool for at least 30 minutes before you cut into them. Okay, and that is how you make sourdough traditional artisan loaves. I hope you had fun. I hope this brought more clarity and not more confusion. Again, I'm going to say, if you're intimidated, just start. Rude. That's what I did, and I did not learn over all of this overnight. And this is not even like the most professional way to do it. I'm not going to lie and say that it is. This is what makes sense in my brain and the things that have worked with everything that I have tried since I've been baking with sourdough. So that's why that's my encouragement, just to start. You'll figure it out and just look up a little bit of information at a time. That's what I did, just a little bit. I was like, oh, I have this question. I would either text my sister-in-law. If we both didn't know, I would look it up. So I would just say, if you're intimidated, just start. You will get the hang of it, I promise. Even if your loaves are terrible in the beginning. Because like I said before, mine absolutely were. So I hope you had fun learning how to bake. I hope you learned something of how to bake. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.